Hi there. It has always been believed that animals are able to adapt easily to various environmental conditions and have a powerful instinct for self-preservation, but not everything goes according to plan. Sometimes the weather can be so severe that poor animals simply freeze under the ice in winter. But it's good that there are people who truly care about what happens to others in this world and are always ready to lend a helping hand, even in the most difficult situations. Cat under the snow. In the state of Montana in 2017, there was an incredible case of rescuing a domestic cat named Fluffy. One day before the celebration of the new year, the owners found their favorite cat in the snow in the front of their house. Looking closer, they realized that all of Fluffy's fur was covered with not just snow, but ice. The temperature outside at that time was 10 degrees Fahrenheit. They immediately picked up Fluffy and rushed to the veterinary clinic. When the doctor examined Fluffy, it became clear that her temperature was so low that it was impossible to measure it at all. However, a few days later, the Animal Clinic of Kalispell on its Facebook page published a story about the cat's miraculous return to life. Accompanying the story was terrifying photos of frozen Fluffy, but next to it were warm pictures of Fluffy all warm and cozy. As you probably know, for this cat to return to life, many different procedures had to be done. In an interview with members of the press, the family claimed that they did not know how Fluffy ended up in the snow and frozen because they were not home at this time, but the only thing that could be assumed was that someone doused Fluffy with water, which resulted in such consequences. Frozen swans. This incredible story happened in Crimean Peninsula on Lake Sussex. Not so long ago, it happened. 100 swans were frozen to the ice. Trying to escape, the birds became more and more stuck in an ice trap. This was told by residents of neighboring villages who turned to the local animal rescue service. According to the rescuers, about 100 swans were in the hole, and another 150 feet away in the ice were 2 more birds that were in dire need of help. As noted, they were very exhausted and trying to free themselves. They were badly injured on the ice. As soon as the rescuers arrived at the scene, a rescue operation was immediately organized. Divers went forward to the swans and breaking through the ice. They then pulled out the injured, exhausted animals from the frozen water. They were then transferred to the local bird assistance shelter. Fortunately, the rescue team was on time. The swans were warmed up, and now they are safe and sound. The resurrection of alligators. In this video, we can see a seemingly incredible picture, but in fact, these alligators are frozen in ice, and this is quite a common occurrence. But as it turned out, these reptiles were experiencing record low temperatures. They hibernate, and in order not to suffocate underwater, they leave their muzzles on the surface. The fact is that crocodiles belong to cold-blooded animals whose body temperature depends on the ambient temperature. By the way, alligators are able to survive at a temperature of -40 degrees Fahrenheit, and if it gets colder around them, then their body simply hibernates. It is also noteworthy that at the same time, all metabolic processes slow down, food is not digested, and all energy is expanded in order to maintain the temperature of one's own body. It even happens that to preserve heat, they dig along the shore, but more often they just lie and doze. For them, there is only one problem. Without oxygen, they cannot survive more than a day. For this reason, in a park in North Carolina, however, it became known that reptiles in this state could not survive more than 7 days in this temperature. Park staff would have had to intervene and save them, but this time, people did not need to help. These reptiles were able to warm up on the street and lay in the sun rays. Frozen Roe Deer. According to media reports, this man went fishing on the lake where he noticed a roe deer which fell on slippery ice, froze, and could not walk. Without thinking twice, the man poured his warm thermos over the animal, and fortunately, he got it free. Then the man tried to lift the roe deer onto its paws, but because of the slippery surface, nothing happened. But then, the fisherman began to push the animal to the shore, and thus was able to free it. Standing in the snow, the roe deer immediately felt confident and ran into the forest. Rescue Wapiti. Last winter, there was an amazing case of rescuing a wapiti from the icy water of the lake. The animal was lucky it was noticed by a fisherman. The man immediately realized that he was not able to do this job alone, so he called the rescue service. When the rescuers arrived, the wapiti was already floundering with all his might. To help the unfortunate beast, a strong rope was thrown onto its horns, and the ice was cut. The weakened, helpless, and icy animal was managed to be pulled ashore. After that, the wapiti's limbs were wrapped up and placed by the fire and was given a great massage. After that, they wrapped him in a warm blanket and took him to a village on a sleigh tied to a car, where a veterinarian examined the wild beast. As a result, the wapiti got better and had to say goodbye to everyone who participated in his rescue. Then he ran off back to the forest as if nothing had happened. Rescue turtles. According to media reports, in Florida, fish protection officers and volunteers began an operation to rescue freezing large sea turtles. These amphibians are not able to withstand the cold, and due to a rare temperature of 41 degrees Fahrenheit, which is abnormal for these latitudes, these turtles have lost the ability to move. Just imagine poor turtles float to the surface, where rescuers catch them with large nets. ABC News reported that just in 7 days, about 200 sea turtles were rescued. These animals will rush down to Panama City. They will be released back into the water only after the temperature in the Gulf of Mexico returns to normal. Small bird. A resident of the small town of Caldwell, Idaho, saved a sparrow that had been frozen to a metal pipe, warming it with their own heat. A man went out onto the porch of his house and noticed that on the fence near the well was a small defenseless bird who was desperately trying to fly, but all its attempts were unsuccessful. Then, as he came closer, he carefully touched the prisoner with his hand and then melted the ice with his own breath. Soon the animal was thawed, and the sparrow safely flew away. According to the savior himself, birds quite often sit on this bar near his house in order to drink water from the tank. However, this time, winter played a cruel joke on this feathery friend, the man says. But even more surprising in this story is how grateful the bird turned out to be for its salvation. Indeed, since then, every morning the sparrow brings a small twig from a neighboring yard to the threshold of his savior's house. Such a present may very well be regarded as a sign of gratitude. It's hard to imagine, but a dog named Hardy fell through the ice on a lake near Ashington in the UK and spent about 3 hours in the cold water. The rescue of the frozen and wounded dog was filmed by the inspector of the Animal Welfare Organization. This video was recorded using a pectoral camera and clearly demonstrates how a woman claws to an icy dog to help it get out of the ice hole. After Hardy found himself on the surface of the ice, he safely reached the shore. Having got out of the ice trap, the rescuer took the dog to a voluntary hospital. Fortunately, at the moment, everything is fine with Hardy. He was warmed, fed, and there is no longer any threat to his life. We believe that such people definitely deserve your respect and admiration. Wild boar rescue. Skaters who came to train on one of the frozen winter lakes in Sweden noticed in the distance on the surface incomprehensible dark spots. Moving closer, they realized that these are wild boars that needed some help. It is for this reason that the plan to save them was developed almost immediately. The salvation of the 4 boars was as follows. The skaters put their sticks on the animals and slowly pushed them to the shore. Despite the fact that the wild boars were exhausted by their attempts to get ashore on their own, they reacted aggressively to the approach of people. The animals even hissed and tried to rush at their rescuers. But when the animals still realized that they just wanted help, they calmed down and began to wait for their salvation. Help for the horse. An operation to rescue a horse that fell through the ice was carried out in Michigan. To get to the animal out in the frozen lake, the help of 2 rescue teams and specialized equipment was required. The owner of the horse called rescuers to rescue the poor animal from the frozen reservoir. Arriving rescue workers could not pull the horse out on their own. However, a tractor was delivered to the scene, and with the help, it was able to pull the animal ashore. Then the horse was sent to the veterinary for an examination. They concluded that she was completely healthy. And that's all for today. Have you ever had to help animals? Be sure to write about it in the comments. And don't forget to put like if you like this video. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more.